Hi, everybody. My name is Andries, and the band that made me pick up a guitar is a band from New York called Helmet.
There we go. There we go. Nobody in this series has yet chosen Helmet. And let's just go straight into this, Andries. Helmet, thank you for your time, by the way. But let's just go straight into it. Helmet is one of those bands, kind of like almost like Celtic Frost in a way as well, where like a lot of people put them on a pedestal, but very few people actually know the band. The first question has to be, how did you discover this band?
I had an older nephew who was into hardcore. His favorite bands were Agnostic Front and Suicidal Tendencies. And then, of course, in high school, there was, alternative music. It was 92. It's crazy how many big records that came out between 91 and 93, Rage Against the Machine, the whole grunge thing. But there were also things like Biohazard going my way. And then I remember the only way you could really get to know new music was through magazines or through MTV. MTV was becoming really big. There were things, there were shows, there was everything. I remember there was all of a sudden I saw this video from a band that didn't look that metal, but they sounded really heavy and they had cleany vocals on it. And I think it was a Beavis and Butthead episode, to be sure. And I remember what they said was something like, wow. I mean, I'm not gonna like I know how to do it. It's gonna be so bad. But thing fire. Well, that was not what they said. They actually said was, wow, these guys look so normal.
That drummer looks like a regular guy.
Yeah. If you saw these guys on the street, you wouldn't even know that they're cool.
Yeah, they look like normal guys.
It was a long time since I've seen that video, but I'm talking about the Unsung video from Helmet, which is, I think, still to date their biggest hit and was definitely the breakthrough song on their Meantime album. It is a typical 90s video, with machines and a little bit artsy, and then they were wearing something between skate kind of how you say it, attire, is that the proper word? A little bit
fashion clothes.
Yeah, it was a fashion. So they had long sleeves and everything, but they look cool, but they didn't look metal at all. Yeah. But for some reason, it was a little bit the missing link between the hardcore thing I was already into and the more alternative thing, I guess, the grungy whatever. And I think that's exactly what Helmet was or still is. But I know for a fact that I was completely hooked because I love the Wall of Sound. Yeah. But I also love the fact that Page Hamilton, Helmet's frontman, he's a great musician. I mean, he has a jazz background and everything. Right. But he's not the world's best singer. I don't think he will ever claim that himself. So what you have is a guy that's educated enough to not sing out-of-tune. He's very good at what he's doing, but he knows he doesn't have it the talent to do it. And for some reason that I love that. I mean, it's a weird band, I think. And then again, it's also a very easy listening band as well. So it's there's only one Helmet, I guess, but I know it's especially in the 90s, it was very original what they were doing. They had the drop tuning. It's not a surprise all these new metal bands started ripping them off 10 years later. But back in 92, it was very refreshing, and the heaviness of that record, the Meantime album, I still have it with me. It's a great, I mean, it's such a, it's also the layout, it's how they were, very tight, not metal, and then again, very heavy. With the setup, which was my, well, it's not my first real band, but anyway, a band we're talking about now. We once played in the Meantime, the title track. We actually covered it, And I remember, like, I'm not gonna, I mean, because the singer Dries was also a fan and we did it. And two things, like you said in your intro, or like you said earlier on in our conversation, everybody knows Helmet, but don't expect a venue to go crazy or nuts when
Right.
when you play that song. Although everybody afterwards comes to you and say, "Wow, that was great."
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like, I mean, if we, let's say, would have done a hate breed cover song, we probably would have
Right.
demolished the place. But in the meantime, you see, there was a lot of smiles on face, like, oh wow, cool, these guys are doing it. But I mean, that was it. And another thing, and that's also because I'm usually not a fan of doing covers. But if you do like that, I kind of realized that it's Helmet's also the kind of band. It looks kind of simplistic on the
Right.
when when you don't dig deeper, but it's not that easy.
You know, the first one you mentioned is one of their most known songs, Unsung. Uh, would that be one of the three songs for you that will always stay with you?
Um. Well, the problem is,
You can go full hipster and deep cut here. Don't worry about that.
I'll go. I'll have to do it. Well, the thing is, I'll start with I'm gonna choose another one, which is not it's not the most famous song on the record, but I'll tell you why. There's this song. It's the last song on the record. It's called "Role Model." Because I'm also a product of the how you call it, the being alone in your room and act like you're a rock star and play air guitar on a song and sing. And like so many people back in the 90s, I've been caught many times when my mother open the door and you're there, and I remember we had this thing in the kitchen, like where the sink is. How you call it when you have to make sure there's no water going through the sink. There's this
Plunger, a
plunger. But in the kitchen we had exactly the same shape of a microphone. Don't ask me why it was. So it was the perfect microphone to fake things, and of course that's where all the magic happened. And
Right.
Role Model was actually the song that I always play back a little bit. And was like, one day I'll be on a stage and play guitar. So I don't know why it was Role Model. Probably it was because of the last song on the record. So that's when I started doing it.
Yeah.
So it's still a very good song. It's not their most famous. I don't think they play it live or that often, but to me, that's, if I envision it right now, I see myself to this day, which is around 30 years later, I still see myself in my old room doing it.
You know, Helmet was on hiatus for a couple of years, late 90s to I think 2004 or something like that. And I remember that it was like, again, back to the whole, everybody knows of them. Few people are maybe huge fans or like go berserk on the show. But it was a big deal that they were back. And I think they played Grass Pop that year as well when they came back, or one of those, first years after the reunion. And everybody was talking about, oh, Helmet's playing. But, at the end of the day, it would still be Iron Maiden headlining the festival, obviously. They have continued to release albums, and almost every few years there's a Helmet record. For you as a fan, have you followed them on that journey, or do you go back to that, second and third album that are the biggest classics?
Well, I'm a loyal guy. I hope I am loyal in most aspects of my life, but especially with bands I really love, and especially the bands that define you, which is always in the beginning of your musical life. I assume.
Of course.
So I've seen them pretty much every tour. I also it was in 2004 when they returned with that Size Matter record, rather. And I remember going to London because they didn't play mainland Europe back then. But the first comeback show on European soil, was in England,
Yeah,
was
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
London. So we actually went there. That was with John Tempesta on drums, who was I think he recently quit Testament or White Zombie, and then there was a little bit the old lineup. Never wanted to have anything to do anymore with Page. It was John Stanier's, that's his name, from Battles and Phantomas, I think, or at least is it Phantomas? Definitely Battles. And then so it was a little bit of a yeah, you know, it was Frank Bello from Anthrax actually was
Yeah.
playing bass.
Yeah.
So I followed them, and then, but like you said, I think they still had a lot of attention when they came back, but with each record, it became less and less. And I think now it's one of those bands that I think they can easily fill, I don't know, 400, 500 cap space venues, but they're never going to be the headliners anymore. I don't think the records are as impactful as they used to be. But I still like what he's doing. I don't think he expects it to be as big as it was, but I still buy all the records. And every time and each tour they came over, I was there. And I'm very lucky to, you know, toured with the bands, and I've seen them a couple of times while on tour. In crazy places. And I remember like one time, because that's the thing. Jasper, what do you feel about like Never Meet Your Heroes? What's your opinion about it?
That's an interesting one. Because it's a risky thing, because it either I feel like it's very rarely like a neutral thing. It's either a fantastic experience or it's really, really eye-opening or shitty. So that's how I feel. Like, I've met, without, you know, calling names, a few of my heroes where I was like, okay, that's the biggest fucking diva I've ever met in my life. And definitely takes away some of the magic, because once you know somebody personally in this world, it's sometimes hard to look at them on the stage from the crowd. But then on other areas, I've had fantastic experiences as well.
I completely agree. Just like you, because of what we've done or what I do now, I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet almost all of them. Mostly it was all right, I think. I mean, sometimes it was really cool, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But for me, Page Hamilton was somebody, I actually started playing guitar because of him. So I've seen him so many times, and I remember like even some show, I think in Hungary, where he was like really close to say whatever, but for some reason I never asked for anything. Because like I don't want to meet him, but of course because of the band, you play festivals and the band becomes bigger, and you know you see each other on backstage and whatever. So when we quit Diablo Blvd, which was my last real band in 2018, we did like one last summer. Like we did all the festivals because we knew we would do our last show at the end of December. So it was basically a last run we did, which was really cool. But it's important to know it was the last time we would be doing this. And we played Wacken that year. So we're on the Wacken Festival, and we hang out in the backstage a couple hours before the show, and there's friends of ours and Madballs or whatever. And all of a sudden, because I knew Helmet was on the bill, but for all the people that have been to Wacken, it doesn't mean anything because it's the size of
it's so scattered
country. So exactly. Whatever, if they're playing, you still have to transfer to get there. No, I'm just exaggerating, but anyway. So all of a sudden, I see like, oh shit, they're on the same part of the festival. Their backstage is the same part. So like, and I see their place, and I'm like, oh shit, they're really close to us. And I start thinking like, all right, you never wanted to meet him, say anything to him, because back then it was also, I mean, they had like tours where they were like Belgian roadies that know me, like, hey, if you want to come say hello and whatever. No, I don't want to meet him. What I usually don't have actually, but for him I was like, no, it doesn't matter, because Page Hamilton has a weird sense of humor sometimes, and you never, you know, just like you said. But you know, keep in mind, it's 2018. It's probably the last time I ever gonna do this. I mean,
Yeah,
as a band, I mean, I'm not gonna start a new band. Make sure you're at a level you can play Wacken. So I think like, all right, if I have to do it, yeah,
Now's the
well,
time.
now's the time. So I'm like, whatever. So at one point, a couple hours before stage time, somebody said like, yeah, we have to let's check out the stage or whatever. So
Right.
I was like, all right, let's do it, like all bands do, and we start walking. And it's Wacken is in a very like forest kind of area. So the walk is literally a walk in the park in a forest, and it's the five of us starting our little walk, and all of a sudden I see a guy, and there's this skinny, tall guy who's actually he's not really joining us, but he's also there. And without really looking at him, I know who he is. It's Page Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to know, just like you said, Helmet is like if you're a fan, you're like, wow, it's Page Hamilton. If you're like, yeah, I think Meantime's a great song. I like Unsung if it's a metal party, but I really don't care. So rest of my band's like, and I'm like, it's Page Hamilton, and all looking at me like, and I think somebody said like, yeah, then go say hello for once. I mean, whatever it is, but nobody was really interested. And I remember like it was a 5-minute walk, and I'm walking there, and he's there as well because there's nobody else on that road. So and he's a little bit in himself, but it's not like he walks like 5 meters. What is it, 10 yards or something? I mean, he's with us and he's not with us.
Right.
I mean, there's nobody else. It's basically the 6 of us walking in a road, 5 guys, and everybody's talking, and he's just there. And I'm like, what is holding you? Nothing. And I'll tell you the end of it. It took me. I didn't do it. The only memory I have with him is me awkwardly walking next to him.
Sort of stalking.
Sort of stalking. Not really. He probably didn't know. And then at the end of the road is the stage, and he goes to the right. I think he even like nodded to us, like, "Hey guys, whatever." And so till this day, I'm still without ever talking to him. But the closest I've ever been to him, and probably the last time, is me. Like without him knowing, awkwardly hanging out with him. So till this day, I'm like, all right,
he knows now.
Let's not jinx it. Never meet your heroes. But he still is.
If I were to press you for a second and a third song, would there be a newer song amongst them, or was let's hear it.
I think it's their last official record was Dead to the World, and there's the song Look Alive. Nobody knows you been holding. I think they're way more alternative than they used to be. He's also older. The records are definitely not as good anymore as they used to be as a whole.
Yeah.
But for me, every record, he still has a couple of songs where I'm like, all right, that's what he does. It's and that's why I still think he's one of the best alternative rock, metal, whatever you call it, 90s era songwriters of all time, because because he is from that era. He kind of co-invented the whole what is it? It's post-grunge, call it alt metal, whatever. He did his own thing, but especially on the vocal side and his vocal lines and everything. So that's a record. That's a not a usual choice of favorite Helmet songs, but that's one that always ends up in one of my Spotify playlists. I don't want to be I only listen to the obscure things.
Right.
I mean, in the meantime, Ironhead give it. He feels bad. Everything, Milquetoast, Wilma's Rainbow. The list is endless. All amazing songs. But I think it's more interesting if I try to point out the less known diamonds.
Exactly. So let's dig for another diamond then, it sounds like.
I'll go to another record.
Where are you taking us?
Well, I think their second most known or second most popular record, the Betty record.
Right. The third record.
94. I think a record that came out when mid-90s alternative music was at its highest peak, I think.
Yeah, Life of Agony, Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, because to give you some, because you were living in Belgium, so but for the international listeners, like every country, we have our big festivals, and in Belgium, the summer festivals, the mainstream alternative festival are one at the end of June, beginning of July, the Werchter Festival, which is well known, and then the end of second half of August, there's the Pukkelpop Festival. In '94, Helmet did both, so they both played main stage. Which says something about their status back then, because now every festival has 4,000 acts. But in the 90s, it wasn't like that.
No.
You had one main stage with, 8 bands, and then if you were lucky, there was a marquee with another 8. But you had 16, 20 bands, I think, back then. So Helmet was one of those 16 in all those mainstream festivals. So the Betty record, why do I like the record? I'll show you. The cover is iconic. It catapults me right back to the summer of '94, 16 years old. Crazy about music, crazy about heavy music. It's stupid because the record looks like the weather is good, but in my head, the weather is always good when I see this cover. Wilma's Rainbow, very well known, the opener. I think the single back then, Jasper, was Biscuits for Smut, which was a very weird single song because it was very alternative. And I remember buying the shirt because the helmet, the meantime, still looks a little bit tough. But the merchandise for this record was weird. Those were arty, farty, hand-drawn little drawings. And I still have it. But you felt already that, if they ever had a metal feel,
it was gone.
It was gone. It was the thing. I think somebody explained it as, was it Mike Patton? Because I remember Mike Patton is a big fan of Helmet. Is it the Thinking Man's metal band, something like that?
Yeah, there you go. It would be fair to say that you could classify Helmet as one of the first hipster metal bands.
Definitely.
It's like, oh, you listen to Cannibal Corpse? That's cute. I listen to unique stuff.
I like to a guy that actually he's educated in jazz, and a couple of years later he's gonna work with David Bowie. He worked on the Heat soundtrack. I mean, if you see his resume, it's usually the kind of guy I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be a evening. But because I remember this is also a story. I remember when I was in Born from Pain, we played Budapest. We had a day off, and promoter we were having dinner, and in Budapest you have a concert boat
and
on
the river.
On the river, and there was a lot of people. I was like, oh, who's playing? Really like that? And he goes like, oh, it's Helmet. I'm like, oh shit. You want in? Yeah, sure. So we went, me and Dominic, the other Born from Pain guitar player. So the show is really good. I mean, Helmet's usually, it's always tight. I mean, whatever. It's always fine. But I mean, to give you a little bit of an idea, Jasper, how he was. So I remember he plays the songs, and between songs, towards the end of the set, he goes he literally says this. He's like, all right, everybody, thank you for coming out on a whatever night. Budapest is great. You know what? Set's almost done. There's after the show, let's have a beer. You can come up to me. You can ask me anything about my songwriting, but also about my gear, because he has a sound. So just come up to me. Let's have a great night. So the whole audience of Hungarians go nuts. All right, this guy's amazing. He just waits till the applause fades out, and then he goes yeah, right. This is our last song. So, and I remember me and Dominic, who had been on tour for weeks. I mean, we were so cynical, so we just laughed our asses off because we thought it was so funny. But I remember going home wow. I mean, can you imagine being a huge fan of that band and he says that? I mean, that was his sense of humor, but it's very metalheads probably would not do that. The song I chose from this one is a song called "Speechless." It's I don't think it was ever a single or anything. I think Milquetoast was also on the Crow soundtrack. That's also a famous song. "Speechless." I'm gonna repeat myself. Same deal. Very heavy riffing. Very heavy. The sound quality of that record is amazing. I thought the T-Ray produced it, and that was a hip hop guy. So if you listen to it again, it has like a very the drums are very in front of the mix because it almost sounds like a hip hop album,
right?
Without the rhythm patterns, but how it's mixed. And then they have the huge guitars. And then his vocal lines are very, very good because when he was on point, it was so catchy. So "Speechless," not your obvious choice, but one of the songs I listen most to on the Betty record.
You are, even though you mentioned, Diablo Blvd, hung up the guitar, if you will, in 2018, but you've remained quite busy, not just yourself, obviously, and people mostly in Belgium will know that you and singer Alex have continued with the Welcome to the AA podcast. You're also working with many different things and Willy Radio as well. People that want to continue to follow you, I understand we shouldn't buy Wacken tickets anytime soon to see you play there, because that's not high on your priority list right now. But what's keeping you busy right now?
Well, like you said, I've been playing in bands for 20 years, which was great. I mean, it was an amazing experience, from hardcore bands till even like more the metal rock bands. I think every scene had its charm. But I'm on the other side now. I'm like you. I have the weekly Welcome to the podcast, which is fantastic to do. I mean, it's long form interviewing. It's mainly famous people in the home country, Belgium. We also had like a couple who were more into musicians. Rock musician, but I mean, we even had Sabaton on the podcast, which I think is cool. Like we have like famous TV people, and the week later it's somebody from Sabaton. We had Isaac from Epica as well. So I love doing that, and then of course I think I'm now my 4th season. I have a metal radio show on a weekly metal radio show, and yeah, it does the same thing with growing up. Like I told you earlier on, you see yourself on stage, doing things, and obviously I didn't really reach the top, but I mean, the things I've done was way more than I ever expected.
Right.
I would have achieved, and now with the radio show, sometimes it's good you're 45. Which keeps you grounded a little bit, but the times I'm like, wow, this is great. I have everything to say about that show, only good things. It's carte blanche, that's how they say it here, so no interference. It's great to play a lot of bands and everything, but also Belgium, because that's a good thing. If you played in a band yourself, and especially the bands I've been in, all bands I've done had some kind of success, and like I said, you never really reach the top, but I mean, you tour. I mean, we toured the States, you do everything, you have record deals. I mean, we signed with Nuclear Blast, you with Sony and all these things, so you can't really say you haven't done anything. But there's a big difference between being in the system of being in a real band and actually being a headliner on the walk, and that's when it really started. We never did that, but I know how it works. I mean, I know the hardships, I know how hard it is, and it feels really good to give bands a chance, and not because I'm some kind of saint, but just because I always said to myself, and that's when we started the podcast, I know how hard it is.
Violence victims make the most vicious villains justify into violence while they
The radio show feels like it's now my turn to give a little bit back.
Right.
And of course, 90% of the show is also, play good music, obviously. But the little things, I feel like it's very helpful that I have the past that I have.
Andries, thank you so much for spending some time with me and sharing your passion with us all about Helmet. And hey, November 10th, new album's coming out.
It's so crazy. I'm the first person ever talk about Helmet on your show.
We've had Maiden twice already, but no Helmet.
Helmet's
Awesome.
mine.
There you go. There you go. Andries, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you. It was an
I wish
honor.
you all the best with all the
Thank you.
next interviews you'll do, but we know it's not going to be Paige because you don't want to talk to him. Awesome.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.